Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, AC Dunlap, and I'm glad that you've joined us today. Joy in Our Town brings you the issues and problems that are faced in the local community with the hopes of finding a solution. Our guest for this segment is Rachelle Martin, Executive Director for the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Franklin County, also known as NAMI. She joins us today to share important information regarding African American mental health, along with the factors that contribute to mental health issues among African American communities. Welcome, Rachelle. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, AC?
Good. It is very good to see you.
It's nice to be seen by you. Thank you.
Can you talk with us a little bit about your history with NAMI?
Well, I've been with NAMI for 7 years now, and as their executive director. Okay. And the things that I do is to implement the programs that are designed by NAMI National, and to implement the mission of NAMI, which is we are dedicated to improving the lives of people living with a mental illness and their families through education, advocacy, support, referral, and I think that is it. So we make sure that family members and people living with a mental illness get the services that they need.
Okay. Now you have a history in the field as far as advocacy. And can you talk to us a little bit about how you transitioned into the mental health field?
Well, I worked for the Adam Board for many years. I've been in the field for over 30 years, but I worked with the Adam Board of Franklin County for 9 years, and I was their prevention manager and their director of training. And so I had a history of coming into this field of mental illness.
So can you talk to us a little bit about mental illness?
Well, mental illness is a brain disorder. People need to really understand that it is a brain disorder. It is just like a health problem that you would have with cancer or heart attacks or heart disease. It is a brain disorder, and there is something that is in the brain that is just not right. And so people come up with this whole premonition that, you know, it's this horrible, horrible thing, when in fact it is not necessarily a horrible disease. It is something that is manageable, and hope is available. I mean, there is hope with it.
So can we talk a little bit about mental illness as it relates to the African American community?
Well, for us as African Americans, mental illness is really an issue that is pushing us in the way that it is when we don't have the resources and we have barriers that a mental illness can trigger violence, trauma, not being able to make it in life, to not being homeless, not having the resources that are needed to live, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If we don't have that, it can possibly lead us into a mental illness, depression, that kind of an issue. So it is a serious problem. 20% of African Americans can be living with a mental illness because they don't have what they need to make it in life.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that circumstances such as that make African Americans more susceptible to mental illness?
I do.
Okay.
I do. People struggling, trying to make it day to day, and with the rhetoric that's being said in our communities now, with the shootings that have been going on, this can trigger these these bad feelings in one's brain.
So why do you believe, or if you do believe, that there is a stigma maybe within the African community regarding even the discussion of mental health?
That stigma makes it much more difficult because people will not talk about it. They'll push it underneath the table. They won't even share it with their friends. They may not even share it with their families that their loved one may have a mental illness or that something just isn't right that's going on. So, which makes it difficult for the person to be treated, for the person to even come out and say, there is something going on with me and I just don't know what to do.
So how does your organization specifically address that problem, I guess, within the African American community?
I have seen an increase of African Americans calling and wanting to get involved with NAMI. What we do is we provide family-to-family classes for people living with a mental illness. These classes are 12-week-long classes. They are free of charge. The family member gets a binder with 1,000 pages in it, and it covers such things as the different types of mental illnesses, the drugs that are associated with it, how to communicate with their loved one, the resources that are available in our community, and lastly, how to take care of yourself as you go through this journey. We also have support groups for families who have a loved one with a mental illness, and they get to come and talk about in a room with people that may not look like them, but share their feelings and what is going on in their household. We also have services that are provided for families, for people living with a mental illness. The support groups, we have peer-to-peer classes. These classes are taught by individuals who have a mental illness, and they teach them all about their mental illness and how to manage it. So NAMI does this great job at helping our community and educating our community around mental illness.
So how do you recognize or know if someone in your family is mentally ill, or even if you have those traits?
Well, they may have experiences of doing things that are different. If they could be talking to themselves, they could be having anger rages and you don't know why. They may be up 1 minute and suddenly plumb down, where there is it could be bipolar with manic and then suddenly depression. You know, they act different than what they would normally act.
So what do you do if you feel like maybe a family member might be suffering from a mental illness?
Well, the one thing that I would do is I would call NAMI and just talk about what's going on and let us refer you to a provider that can help you delineate what's going on or help that person of what's going on. The Adam Board has a number of programs and services. They do a great job. Our community does a great job with mental illness, and we now are getting involved with making sure that we are culturally competent to work with folks that look different than maybe what the person is that's on the other side of the service that is serving us. contact us. You can contact Mental Health America. They also work with our community on getting people the services that is needed for them.
Do you feel, you talked about cultural competency, do you feel that that is an important factor in helping someone deal with mental health?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because we all don't look alike. We all don't have the same cultures, the norms, the values. We don't look alike, and we don't do things the same way. So of course that is very important.
Now, as far as partnerships, working with other entities within the community, does NAMI do that, and if so, in what area?
Well, yes, we do. We work with the Suicide Prevention Foundation. We work with MAC, the Cultural Competency Advocacy, Ethnic. MAC, I'm not sure of all the initials, but we work with them. We work with all of the Adam Board providers in helping people to get linked up to the services that they need.
Now, as far as the faith-based community, do you all work with that? Do you have an initiative that you're looking at as far as that?
Yes, we have a wonderful initiative. A minister came to us last month, and he went through our family-to-family classes, and from that, he is now doing a series, a whole month series, preaching on mental illness. And his name is Reverend Aarons, Reverend Tim Aarons, at the First Congregational Church that's located on, Congregational Church that's located on Broad Street. We are beginning an initiative working with NAMI Ohio called Bringing Mental Illness Out of the Shadows. And for our county, we're doing it, bringing mental illness out of the shadows and into the church. So we are going to be encouraging ministers to bring this up in their pulpit. NAMI has done community conversations on mental illness. Now we want to move to church conversations on mental illness.
And why is that important?
Because people go to church and they want to be able to know that the church is open to listening and to hearing what is needed for, around mental illness. We want to be able to educate and help our church community.
Well, thank you, Rachelle, so much for your time. Definitely kind of for giving us some insight regarding this issue. Coming up next on Joy in Our Town, empowerment for young women. Stay with us. We'll be right back.